All right, so we're going to talk about functions, but as a context, imagine that you've started a small business as a personal fitness trainer and you're just getting started. Maybe you have 4 clients right now that are each working on losing weight. And you're doing a good job. All of your clients are losing weight, but you know that it's not healthy to lose weight too quickly. You probably don't want to have anyone losing weight at more than about 1.5 pounds a week. And so you'd like to write a small program to help you keep track of how quickly your clients are losing weight and let you know whether or not they're doing so at a healthy rate. So here we have a table of data that you've collected for your 4 clients. You have Ahmed, and his starting weight was 195 pounds, and he's currently at 139 pounds, and he's been exercising for 46 weeks. And we have Mariana, who started at 192 pounds, is currently at 164, and she's been exercising for 14 weeks. And we also have Cyrus and Emily here. And we want to make sure that for each of them, the loss rate is less than or equal to 1.5 pounds per week. We could put together a mathematical expression to calculate the loss rate. We can take the difference between their starting weight and their current weight and then divide that by the number of weeks that they've been exercising to get an average loss rate. And we could do that for each of our clients. And so for Ahmed, for instance, we could write a small program where we store in a variable his starting weight and his current weight and how many weeks he's been exercising, and then we can calculate his loss rate according to this mathematical equation, the difference between the start weight and the current weight divided by the number of weeks that he's been executing. Store that in a variable called Ahmed loss rate, and then we can use a relational expression comparing that result to 1.5, and if it's less than or equal to, we would store a true in the variable Ahmed healthy, and then we could print that result. And we could do something similar for Mariana, and then we could do the same thing for Cyrus and for Emily. And this is probably fine for our 4 clients, but we could imagine that our business might grow and we might have 10 or 12 clients in the next couple of weeks or months, and we might even grow to hundreds of clients. And at that point, this becomes sort of untenable. And another problem that crops up is we keep repeating ourselves. And if it turns out that there's an error in here somewhere, perhaps we forgot to use these parens in our calculation of the loss rate, and so we would be doing this division operation prematurely and calculating incorrect results. We would be duplicating that error in our code dozens or possibly hundreds of times. And this is where a new construct that we're going to talk about called functions comes in. In simple terms, a function is just a name that refers to a sequence of instructions in memory that is executed when we call it by its name. We've already seen a couple of examples of functions in Python. Print is actually a function, and input is actually a function. And we use the print function to display contents on the console window for the user, and we use the input function to collect user input through the keyboard. And these are just named sequence of instructions that already exist in memory, and we can get the computer to execute that sequence of instructions by using the name of the function followed by a set of parens, which we call the argument list. So how might we apply this to the problem that we're talking about, determining whether or not each of our clients is losing weight at a healthy rate? Well, we can look for the things that we keep doing and repeating ourselves on. And 2 things that stand out are calculating the loss rate and then printing out a health report. And what we can do is we could create a function for each of these. And we could create a function called calculate loss rate, and we could create a function called print health report. And then we could just call that function whenever we need that to do that particular set of operations. And so this is what the code might look like if we already had a function called calc loss rate or print health report. And of course, just like the print function or the input function, we can pass arguments to those functions to give the function what it needs. So in order to calculate the loss rate, I would need to know the starting weight and the current weight and the number of weeks that you've been exercising. And based on that, I could calculate and return that value. And then we could call this print health report function, and we could give it the name of the client and the value of whether or not their loss rate is a healthy loss rate. And we could call that function every time we need it. And that way, if there were an error in that equation, the error only exists in one place. It only exists inside this function, and we only have to change it in one place rather than going through each line of code that does that operation, correcting that error, and so on.